Some leaders conquer territory, but then there are those who literally change the world. Mehmet II, well, he was one of those rare figures who did both. This was a man whose ambition was so huge it completely redrew the map and redefined what an empire could be for centuries to come. So let's dive into the story of the man who didn't just conquer a city, but forged an empire that would echo through history. So get this incredible command wasn't sent to an enemy general. Nope, it was a message from a teenage prince to his own father, Sultan Murad II. His dad had decided to retire, leaving a 12-year-old Mehmed in charge. But when a crisis hit, he didn't want to come back. Mehmed's response, right there, it just shows you the iron will and the unbelievable confidence that would define his entire life.
All right, so his path to power, yeah, it was anything but simple. It was this chaotic apprenticeship, marked by him getting the throne, then losing it, a real trial by fire that forged an unshakable resolve in the young prince.
I mean, just try to imagine this for a second. You're 12 years old, and boom, you're the Sultan. But there's this massive Christian crusade marching on your empire. And your dad has to come out of retirement just to lead the army. And then, just 2 years later, he officially takes the throne back and basically sends you away to be a governor. It wasn't until his father's death in 1451 that Mehmed finally became Sultan for good. Now, an experience like that could break someone, but not him. It focused him. It gave him one single, all-consuming goal: to conquer the one city that had defied his ancestors for centuries, Constantinople. So when his father finally died, and Mehmed took the throne for that second and final time, he didn't waste a moment. He immediately poured all his energy into preparing for the ultimate prize, the conquest of a city everyone believed was absolutely impregnable. And here's the kicker. He was just 21 years old when he launched this historic siege. I mean, at an age when most people are just figuring out their lives, Mehmed set out to end a 1,000-year-old empire. Now, this is what's so cool about his plan. It was just brilliant. First, he isolates the city by building this massive fortress to control the shipping lanes. Then, he brings in these monster cannons to just pound the ancient walls into dust. But step 4, that's the move of an absolute genius. The city had this giant chain across the harbor to block enemy ships. So what does Mehmed do? He goes around it. He literally built a road of greased logs and had his men drag his warships over a mile of hills. He pulled his fleet over land. So for 57 long, relentless days, the city somehow held on. But on May 29th, 1453, the walls were finally breached, and the last piece of the Roman Empire fell. After all that, when he finally walked into the ruined imperial palace, Mehmed didn't, shout in victory. Instead, he does something incredible. He quietly recites these lines from the Persian poet Saadi. It's this deep, reflective moment about how all power and glory fades. It just gives you a glimpse of the scholarly mind inside the man they called the Conqueror. Okay, so conquering the city is one thing, but what do you do the day after, right? This is where we see Mehmed's true vision start to unfold. He wasn't just there to tear things down, he was an incredibly ambitious builder. See, he didn't just see himself as another Turkish sultan. No. He took on the title Kaiser of Rome, or Kayseri Rum, and that was a huge political statement. He was basically declaring himself the heir to the Roman emperors, and that Constantinople was his rightful capital. Now, of course, Western Europe just scoffed at this, but the Orthodox Church he put back in power, they actually recognized his claim. And he didn't waste a second. He launched this massive rebuilding program almost immediately. He fixed the walls, started building grand mosques and palaces, and critically, he started repopulating the city, which was nearly empty. He ordered thousands of families, Muslims, Christians, and Jews, to be moved to his new capital to bring it back to life. And wow, this chart really shows you the result of all that work. Just 25 years later, you can see it's already a thriving, diverse city. His policies had completely transformed this conquered ghost town into a bustling cosmopolitan hub, the heart of a new world empire. So this vision for a new cosmopolitan capital, it really hints at a much deeper complexity. Who was this guy, really? He wasn't just a conqueror. He wasn't just a builder. He was this fascinating bundle of contradictions. Okay, so on one side of the coin, you've got this relentless warrior who spent 30 years on campaign after campaign, expanding his empire through constant, often brutal warfare. But then you flip that coin over, and you find this incredible intellectual, a guy who was fluent in a bunch of languages, who wrote poetry. He even hired top Italian Renaissance artists to come paint his portrait and built a personal library that was bigger than almost any in Europe. He was as comfortable talking about Greek philosophy as he was planning a siege. And a character this complex, well, he didn't just conquer lands. He literally built the very structure of the Ottoman state, the one that would go on to dominate the world for centuries. Now, this is probably one of his most controversial and honestly shocking policies, the official legalization of fratricide. I know, it sounds unbelievably harsh, but from his point of view, it was a brutal but practical solution. See, the empire had been torn apart again and again by civil wars between brothers fighting over the throne. This law was designed to guarantee stability for the empire, but it came at a terrible human cost, a really dark legacy that would haunt the dynasty for generations. Because ultimately, you have to understand, he was so much more than a warrior. He was a state builder. He created a centralized government that was loyal only to him. He was the first to codify laws. He established the absolute power of the Sultan, creating the blueprint for every Ottoman ruler who came after him and making sure his empire would last. So when news of his death finally reached Venice in 1481, you know what they shouted in the streets? The great eagle is dead. Church bells rang out in celebration all across Europe. I mean, there's no better proof of the sheer awe and honestly the fear that this one man inspired in all his rivals. So what do we do with a figure like this? A ruthless conqueror who was also a patron of the arts, a devout Muslim who called himself the Roman Caesar, a lawgiver who made it legal to kill your own family. Mehmed II's legacy is every bit as complex and as massive as the empire he built. He didn't just conquer a city, he truly did remake the world.